Hey everyone, it's time for another 3 at 3 on solar PV. I'm Jenn Runyon, Chief Editor of Renewable Energy World.
I'm Paula Mintz, Chief Market Research Analyst, SPV Market Research.
Hey Paula.
Hey Jen.
Good to see you. So listen, we've got some good news, we've got some bad news, and we've got some headwinds coming. That's what we're going to talk about today. We've got our 3 topics, talk about them for about 3 minutes each. And then we go back to our day. So let's start with the good news. Good news announced today. Solar hit a record high of the amount of solar generation in the electricity mix in the United States. Q1 2017, 2.3%. Woohoo! That's a record, over 2%.
Woo! And it definitely is relatively good news. I mean, hey, let's face it, we're penetrating.
Yeah.
And that, and I believe that we were the top generator under wind. Let's just forget it. Wind is always the top generator.
For renewables, we've got hydro, wind, and now solar. But it used to go hydro, wind, biomass, then solar, then geothermal. So solar has crept up in the renewables landscape. So that's good. It also means that all renewables combined, we're now generating more electricity than nuclear power, which is also a record. That's the first time in history that's happened.
I think that's really good. And you know, hey, solar, the only waste for, essentially is what? From once the solar panel is installed. Anyway, it is really good news after years, decades of very hard work, and it is just, it's a struggle, it's a battle, it's a climate change battle, it's a personal independence battle. So this is really good news. Yeah. I completely agree.
Yeah, it's good news, but let's look at the other side of it.
And the other side of it is that it's 2.3%.
2.3%. I mean, I guess that's a decent raise if you get a 2.3% raise, but it's still like, come on, is that the best we can do?
It's not really impacting climate change significantly. It's and again, so it's kind of like the good news, bad news story. You look at all right, whatever side of the political divide you're on, I'm obviously on the liberal side. You look at the recent special elections and you say, wow, we almost won. We weren't expected to win, and announce that as good news. On one hand, yeah, it's good news. We came closer. On the other hand, if you're of that ilk, which I am, it's not good news. We didn't win,
Yeah.
So on one hand, 2.3% up above biomass, definitely swamping nuclear. We're not tapping at the doorway of wind at all, but good news. Good news. We're 2.3%. Good news.
It's growing. We grow, let's think, we grow panel by panel. That's a small number. You can put up one wind turbine and get a 5 megawatt capacity in one turbine. Yeah. And that's not even a big one these days.
Yes, and then it's the cautionary news. Let's just call it cautionary news. So yeah, there's progress. But so much more is needed, and I think that kind of brings us into our last topic.
Yeah. So there are definitely some headwinds, some small rulings that are taking place that are maybe undermining solar. So there's So what happened in PJM territory?
Well, they FERC changed the rules to they want continuous generation. That does not favor solar. That does not favor wind. That does not favor renewables. We all know who that favors. That is not moving in the right direction. That is, I think a small step. There is a directional change in the U.S. towards natural gas and coal. Sorry, and even nuclear, and it's not favoring solar and wind.
So let's unpack this ruling for viewers who may not have been paying close attention. So it's the capacity market in the PJM territory because during the polar vortex of 2014, FERC called on some capacity reserves that were not available because they'd been in use elsewhere. So they've now decided that any energy that is in that capacity market has to be available all the time. So
that's a little reactionary.
Yeah, I mean, so that completely rules out, obviously, wind, solar, and probably really even storage, demand response. Yeah, none of that.
It rules out progress. And if you take a look at the net metering, little attacks around the country, some of which are fought down. I mean, you have Nevada. On one hand, Nevada, did the right thing finally with net metering-ish, right thing-ish. And then they turn around and they do the wrong thing, community solar, etc. Right. So it's just like, what is happening?
Yeah.
So it is always and then Florida finally moving ahead.
Right.
I mean, so you give one step forward, one step back. And really, so much needs to be done because climate change is not something we can pass on to the next generation. It's too late.
Yeah.
It's too late. So really aggressive actions need to be taken. And our country has stepped out of Paris, which, ironically, you see other countries stepping up. But I'm the first, I agree. The Paris Agreement was an agreement. It was not binding.
Yeah,
however, it indicated you should do binding things in your country, and that required you to do those binding, or asked you to do those binding things, which then again, like Kyoto, if you remember, is sort of the same thing. We don't seem to get, as a planet, we agree there's climate change unless you're our administration. We agree that it's human-driven unless you're our administration. However, we then don't do enough. So even the people that agree that this is a disaster don't do enough and do it too slowly. And that's even the past climate change believing, action-oriented administration. We don't do enough. And it will be too late at some point. So back to the 2%, there is a point where the 2% in terms of climate change is a global disaster that is unrecoverable. So whereas 2.3%, woohoo, yes, thank heavens for progress, it's not enough. Because if we get there with climate change, it's too late.
Yeah. All right, everybody, let's do more. That's all we got for 3 at 3 on solar PV.
Bye.
Bye.